Exercise 2.1 has one question about reading zeros from given graphs. Before solving the exercise, let us review the key principle. The number of zeros equals the number of times the graph meets the x-axis. Remember, both crossing and touching points count as zeros. Let us analyze graph I, new. Where does this graph meet the x-axis? Observe that the graph stays entirely above the x-axis. Since it never meets the x-axis, there are no zeros. Therefore, the number of zeros is 0. Now let us analyze graph 2, toy. How many times does this graph meet the x-axis? Observe that it crosses the x-axis at exactly 1 point. 1 crossing means 1, 0. Therefore, the number of zeros is 1. Now let us analyze graph 3. Count how many times this graph meets the x-axis. Observe that it crosses at 3 distinct points. 3 crossings mean 3 zeros. Therefore, the number of zeros is 3. Now, let us analyze graph v3. Does this graph cross or touch the x-axis? Observe that it touches the x-axis at 2 points without crossing. Touching points also count as zeros, repeated zeros. Therefore, the number of zeros is 2. Now let us analyze graph VV. How many x-intercepts can you count? Observe that it crosses the x-axis at 4 distinct points. 4 crossings mean 4 zeros. Therefore, the number of zeros is 4. Finally, let us analyze graph x-intercept. Count the x-intercepts carefully. Observe that it crosses the x-axis at 3 points. 3 crossings mean 3 zeros. Therefore, the number of zeros is 3. Here's a summary of how to read graphs to find zeros. First, look at the graph of y equals p of x. Second, count all points where it meets the x-axis. Remember, both crossings and touchings count as zeros. The total count gives you the number of zeros. Always remember that the maximum number of zeros is bounded by the degree of the polynomial. Practice this skill with different graphs to master it.